Let's go live now to political correspondent Cam Redden in Canberra. Cam, the PM has acted on calls to convene National Cabinet on anti-Semitism.
He has, Ollie. We revealed earlier this morning that National Cabinet would be convened later this afternoon, an emergency National Cabinet to discuss the response across the board from state and territory leaders as well as the federal government to this string of anti-Semitic attacks. I can confirm to you now that meeting will take place at 5 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Given the nature of logistics, this will not be a fully in-person meeting. There'll likely be phone hookups between some state and territory leaders. The Prime Minister noting this morning at his first of two media events that many leaders are only just recently, in the last few days, coming back from their Christmas breaks. So perhaps that is one factor as to why a National Cabinet has not been called to this point of the year. Already last week, the Prime Minister met with the acting Premier of New South Wales, who was acting at the time, as well as the Premier of Victoria to discuss this string of incidents. But clearly the childcare incident this morning is escalating the federal response. So a National Cabinet will meet in just a few hours' time. This is in response to mounting calls from the anti-Semitism Special Envoy Gillian Siegel, who has called for this National Cabinet to be brought together, as have members of the Jewish community and some Jewish community leaders. The opposition first called for this in November of 2022 and has done 23, I should say, in the weeks after the October 7 attacks, and has done so regularly since then. Today, the Prime Minister confirming in the last few minutes that National Cabinet will be called to discuss the broad-ranging responses from state and territory leaders following this latest anti-Semitic attack.
Are you able to confirm reports that you are looking to convene a National Cabinet on anti-Semitism?
Yes, National Cabinet will convene on that, and there's a couple of other issues today.
Do you know what time and what you're expecting to cover in that, aside from just anti-Semitism?
Well, we'll discuss the agenda, of course, comes through with the premiers. The National Cabinet will meet at 5 o'clock this afternoon.
Of course, yesterday the opposition announced plans for mandatory jail time for anybody who acts in such a way, whether it's committing a terror act, whether it's firebombing a place of worship. They want mandatory minimums of 6 years. We can see some of the reaction coming in from the opposition to this call for a National Cabinet by the Prime Minister. The Shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Paterson, posting this message on social media where he says, as recently as yesterday, the Prime Minister said Australians didn't want more meetings. It should not have taken the latest firebombing of a childcare centre for him to finally do so. He goes on to say his excuse, people were on leave over summer, is pathetic. We will hear in the next hour or so from the opposition leader, Peter Dutton. He's campaigning at a Liberal Party event in Sydney today. The first to do so on camera, though, the Deputy Liberal leader, Susan Lee.
Enough is enough. Enough press conferences, enough platitudes, enough prime ministerial mealy-mouthed words. Synagogues, homes, childcare centres are being firebombed. There is an anti-Semitic crisis on our streets. The Prime Minister has finally bowed to pressure and called a National Cabinet. But that's not enough. He must act.
The Federal Police, Holly, are continuing to investigate more than 100 different reports of anti-Semitic incidents or attacks. That's just in the past 7 weeks or so that Special Task Force Avalite has been in operation. So just to repeat that breaking news, a National Cabinet to be called at 5 p.m. today, and we will see if they agree on further action in response to this latest anti-Semitic attack.